Welcome everyone to McCall Science Enrichment. This is our final video for the year 2020 and it is entitled Ice Cream Freezer. Here now are the materials that we will need for this experiment. Here we go. For this experiment you will need 1 cup of whole milk. Make sure it's fresh. Check the expiration dates. You'll need 1 cup of either light cream or half and half. Again, make sure it's fresh. Check your expiration dates. You will need 1/2 cup of plain granulated table sugar, and you will need a 1/2 cup measuring cup for that sugar. You will need a measuring cup for liquids that can hold a total of 2 cups. You will need a stirring spoon, there we go, and you will need some strong tape, and I'll explain why you need that in a bit. You will need no fewer than 3 gallon-sized, fresh, brand new, non-holy, no holes in them, brand new gallon freezer bags, and you will need some either vanilla extract, or you will need the real thing, real vanilla beans. Now you're going to wonder, which one should I use? I tend not to think that vanilla extract is strong enough. I like a really, really strong vanilla flavor, so I'm going to be using these fresh beans instead. And speaking of vanilla beans, let me go into a little bit of detail about what vanilla beans are and how we work with them for this experiment. Here we go. Now, since we're making homemade vanilla ice cream today, my thoughts are going back to when I was just a young person. That's right, back in the ages of the dinosaurs when I was very, very young. My favorite brand of ice cream, which we could get even in my little hometown, was Breyers ice cream. Breyers vanilla bean ice cream. And I know you're going to say, I've tried Breyers ice cream nowadays and it's not that good. Well, I got to tell you something. It's not my imagination. It used to be a lot better than it make it today. It used to have a lot more fat in it and a lot more sugar. And one thing is for sure, back 40, 50 years ago, it had much, much more vanilla bean speck in it. Now, if you're saying, what is a vanilla bean speck? Many recipes this time of year require you to put in this vanilla extract stuff. Now, all this vanilla extract stuff is a real vanilla bean that has been split, and the inside of that bean, the paste or the speck or whatever you call it, has been spooned out with a spoon, and they take that fresh vanilla bean speck and they mix it with a little bit of water and, believe it or not, a little bit of alcohol. Now, if you are against drinking alcohol and all that kind of stuff, this is not the alcohol that we use for science. This is this stuff that's safe to drink. Now, there's not much alcohol in here. There's actually much more water than there is alcohol, but some people object to alcohol, so they don't use this product. All they do is they take some of that bean speck and they dissolve it in water and alcohol, and they sell it as extract. Now, this little teeny tiny bottle here probably sells for about $4, but the flavor of the vanilla in here, there's not much vanilla in extract. I mean, I can barely taste this stuff, so I prefer the way that Breyers ice cream used to be. What they would do is, instead of using this weak stuff, they would take fresh vanilla bean and they would split it with a pair of scissors and they would gouge out that nice bean speck and they would put that black specky stuff right into the ice cream, and that's what we're going to do today. So say farewell to weak old vanilla extract and say hello to real vanilla beans. Now, here's the thing. Real vanilla beans aren't like the beans, like pork and beans or beans that we've germinated. No, this is actually the fruit of the vanilla orchid plant. In other words, this is a plant that produces a flower, and that flower, of course, smells just like vanilla. Now, certain kinds of orchids that produce these vanilla flowers, once that vanilla flower has been what's that word I'm looking for? Once it has been pollinated, that's the word, pollinated. Once that vanilla bean flower becomes pollinated, it begins to grow a fruit. And that fruit is a long, long bean like this. And when these beans come of age, they use scissors and they cut that vanilla bean from the orchid plant itself. And it probably is more of like a yellow color like this. And over time, they gently dry those beans out. And as they dry them, the smell intensifies. That smell gets even stronger. And these beans are sold worldwide. Now, these beans only really grow in warm, humid climates. So these beans here came from Papua New Guinea, but they can also come from Madagascar, and they can come from Tahiti, and they can come from, warm climates. and they're very expensive. I think this pack of 10 beans probably cost me about $10 on Amazon, but it's money that's well worth it. Now, I have to tell you, I have some beans from about a year ago or so, some vanilla beans that I used to make cookies last holiday season, and these beans were not sold in a sealed package like this. They were sold kind of loose and open, and I'm gonna just take one of those beans now. They're kind of fun to use, but in a year's time at room temperature, these beans have become very dry, very, listen for the snap, very brittle, very dry, very brittle, very dry. And they're not really that much use. Now I can still smell that vanilla. You can see the vanilla speck here on my fingers. It does smell good, but not nearly as good as, let's say, some fresh vanilla beans like in this package. So what I'm going to do in a bit is I'm going to find a pair of scissors here, and in the next scene I'm going to cut the top off of this thing, pull out a couple of these beans, show you that they're still moist and flexible and they have all those good vanilla bean oils inside. And I'm going to use that scissors to scissor one of these beans in half, and I'm going to show you how we harvest the speck and get that speck ready. We need at least 1 teaspoon of either vanilla extract, which I'm not going to use, or a little less than a teaspoon of this fresh bean speck. So hang on to your hats. Let's see if we can slice one of these in half and find out what's inside. Here we go. Okay, so I have sliced the plastic off the top of this package that's allowing air to get in now, and if I wanted to keep these beans fresh, I would have to put them back into something that is sort of airtight, because that lack of air inside this package has kept these beans nice and fresh, and they really smell the most that they're going to have, and they're going to have the most vanilla flavor, and that's what we're looking for. So vanilla beans are sort of a strange looking thing. They usually have a curl at one end. They're rather long. They're sort of waxy and glossy, and they feel sort of slippery. And because these beans are fresh, I can bend them and they still have moisture inside, and that means that the vanilla bean speck that's inside this bean that we're going to scrape out in just a bit, that speck is still nice and fresh. So you know this bean is fresh because it's not breaking apart. It's not like a dinosaur fossil right now. It's nice and moist and it's good. So what I've done is I've taken the liberty of taking one of these beans, and I've already cut it in half lengthwise here with a pair of scissors. Now, just to let you know, if you are a baker and you like the smell of nice, fresh vanilla bean, these beans are so powerful in smell and flavor that when I was growing up, I had friends who mom was a big baker, and what she would do is she would take her sugar that she would use for baking, that white refined sugar, and she would take a vanilla bean and a fresh bean and stick it into the sugar storage container, and you know the speck was still inside the bean and it would keep its flavor for a long time, but that nice vanilla smell and flavor would be absorbed by the sugar. So if she made anything with sugar, that sugar already had that vanilla smell in it, and it was just heavenly. So there's a tip for you. So this is what a whole bean looks like. But if you take a whole bean and slice it like this, you get 2 halves, okay? And each half is pretty thin. Now all I did was, I have not done any scraping with this half, so I'm going to set this one to the side. But I have begun to scrape with this half. And what I've done is I've taken my little tiny spoon here and I've just opened that bean up, and with the pointy end of the spoon, I've just scraped it down this way. Now you can see a whole bunch of speck here that's still coming out. If I wipe my finger in there, there's still a lot of very, very valuable, very tasty vanilla bean speck on my finger, and that's out of focus, but that's okay. That bean speck is very tiny and very fine. And if you buy good quality ice cream, and you see these little black flecks, it's not germs or dirt. That's vanilla bean speck. That's what you want. That's the really good stuff. So the speck, you know, there's probably about, a little less than a spoonful in this whole bean. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to harvest the speck out of 2 sliced beans. That's going to be 4 halves. And it'll be probably a little less than a spoonful of speck. Now this stuff is really good. I like my ice cream to be very specky. I like a nice strong vanilla flavor, and I definitely like my ice cream to be nice and fatty because I don't eat it much. When I want it really bad for you. So I'm going to make probably the fattiest, beaniest ice cream possible, and here are the procedures now on how to do that. Hang on. Okay, let's put all of our ice cream ingredients together. Now, starting with the 2-cup measuring cup here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour all of my half and half actually light cream. So I like light cream because it has more fat in it than half and half does. Half and half has more fat in it than, say, whole milk does. I guess I could use a heavier cream than this, but I think this is about as fatty as I'm willing to go for this experiment. So I only need a cup of light cream, but because I like fattier ice cream, I'm just going to take my little container of light cream here and pour all of it into the measuring cup. Now, it looks like here that this container already contains about 2 cups of liquid. Now, I could use 1 cup of milk and 1 cup of light cream, but because I like fattier ice cream, I'm just going to stay with my 2 cups here of light cream. Now I could add a dash of milk here to make sure that I've got exactly 2 cups, but I think I'm pretty good. Now if you're making this at home and you decide to use less fat, you can use 1 cup of whole milk and 1 cup of half and half, or if you want more fat, use 1 cup of whole milk and 1 cup of light cream. But here we go. Now I'm going to add to that mixture here my half a cup of table sugar, just like so. Good. And then I have all of the bean speck from not 2, but 3 halved vanilla beans. I decided to go with a little bit more because, well, why not? It is the winter holidays. Why not here? Let's give ourselves some extra flavor. So you can see all that beautiful black bean speck floating in the sugar and floating in the light cream. So here we go. Now, the next step is to just make sure that everything is mixed together. Being more fat than water, that light cream, it might take you longer to sort of stir all that stuff together. And as long as you do, I think you'll be okay. So don't be alarmed when you see dark specks in this mixture here, because everything will be just fine. Now, do you need to stir everything so it's totally dissolved? No, because the process in which we make ice cream is sort of a violent one. Everything is kind of shaken or stirred together very, very strongly for a very long time. So, you know, this amount of stirring that I've done here is pretty much good. So as long as you can kind of feel that most of that sugar is dissolved and most of that vanilla bean speck is in there, then that should pretty much do it. So now what you want to do is you want to take one of your Ziploc bags, and let's call this bag number 1. Okay, this should be a strong bag. It should be a new bag. There should be no holes in it. And I'm simply going to take my mixture here of our cream and our sugar and our vanilla. I'm going to pour all of that into that bag. Now, if you see any holes or you see any of this liquid escaping this bag, that's a bad thing. You want this to be as tight and as sealed as possible. Now, I don't want anyone to be sending me emails saying, gee, gosh, I put all this stuff in a Ziploc bag and it broke, and now my home, the place where I live, is covered with stinky, sweet, sticky milk. No, I really don't need to get those emails, and thank you for that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the air from this that I can. And then I'm going to seal this bag up. Okay. Now this Ziploc bag is nice because I can kind of feel it. I can feel this bag being sealed, but just to make sure that everything is kind of stays in that bag here, I'm going to put a piece of tape across this bag. So I'm going to take my little bag here, and I'm going to take some of that clear tape that we had from earlier, and I'm going to put that tape across this bag so it's as sealed as possible. Now, if you want to put a couple pieces of tape on here, that's okay. It won't hurt. All this tape is doing is making sure that everything stays inside this bag. We don't want any of that liquid or any of that sugar or any of those nice vanilla bean ingredients to escape. If you want to put a third piece on there, that's okay. So now I'm going to take this bag. I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to take Ziploc bag number 2. Now, The ingredients that I forgot to mention earlier were you need lots of ice and you need some rock salt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab my ice right now. So la-da-dee, la-da-da, la-da-dee, la-da-da, la-da-dee, la-da-da. I have a boatload of ice from the freezer. You will need ice cubes from the freezer that are frozen and are not melting at all. So I'm going to kind of put some of this ice cubes here in the bottom of bag number 2. So I'm going to put enough ice in the bottom of bag number 2 so that when I rest the liquid contents from bag number 1 and put bag number 1 into bag number 2, just like this. Okay, so let's do this. Let me show you what I've got here. Right now I have, this is bag number 2. I've got ice in the bottom. I've got bag number 2 kind of sandwiched in between. And now I'm going to fill the rest of that bag up with ice. So I'm putting ice in the remaining space of bag number 2. Now here's the weird thing about the science of this experiment. This ice, although it's super cold, is not cold enough to freeze the milk and the sugar and the vanilla bean. You can't get ice cream just by exposing this stuff to ice. It's not cold enough. I could take this whole bag right here, this whole bag number 2, and put it in the freezer, and it's not going to freeze, and you're not going to get ice cream from it. No, it's not going to happen. So here's what we're going to do. We're now going to take 1 cup, just like this. This is 1 cup of salt. This is not sugar. This is salt. You can use rock salt like this, or you can use regular salt. But I'm going to pour half of this salt into bag number 2. Half the salt. And you're going to say, why on earth are we pouring salt into this bag when salt melts ice? Well, we want the salt to melt this ice. And you're going to say, why do we want this salt to melt this ice? The reason why we want salt to melt this ice is this ice by itself is not cold enough to freeze this ice cream. If we add salt to this ice, that salt actually lowers the freezing point of this ice. It's going to make this ice sort of like a mush. But believe it or not, this salty, mushy, icy stuff we're going to get in here is going to be colder than just plain ice. By adding salt to this ice, we're going to end up with a mixture of mushy, salty ice in here that's going to be colder, and it's going to be able to freeze this ice cream. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to seal this bag up. I'm going to put the whole thing of bag number 2 into a third bag just to seal it up, and I'm going to shake this whole container for 5 minutes. So now you're going to see a speeded up movie of me shaking this thing, and then we're going to open this up and hopefully we'll have ice cream. Here we go. Okay, I've shaken our 3 bags here that are sealed for 5 minutes, and as I shook them, I could feel that the ice cream that's sort of towards the middle of this bag looks like it's getting thicker, and definitely the ice that's inside has begun to melt, and it's sort of like a watery slurry now with that salt and the ice and all that good stuff. So when I was done shaking these bags, I put it in the freezer for a couple minutes just to make sure that it was nice and cold, and now we're going to open it up. Now this experiment may not work out, but we'll see. Now you're going to ask the question, gee gosh, why do we need ice? Well, we need ice to be able to freeze the cream that was in this bag. And you're going to say, why do we have to shake it? Well, we had to shake it so that we could put some air into that cream. Now, it's called ice cream for a reason. That ice cream that we have, the more air that's in there, the lighter the ice cream is, and the less air that's in our ice cream, the thicker it is. So even though I didn't shake it for that long, I want a nice, thick, creamy ice cream. I have to shake it to add some air, but not too much. Now, the last question is, why do we have to add salt to the ice that surrounds this bag? And again, we added the salt to lower the freezing point of that ice, because lowering the freezing point of this ice melts the ice, but it also lowers the temperature. Look, when I shook this, I can see actual frost on the outside of this bag. This bag definitely feels colder than just plain ice. When I used my bare hands to put ice into this bag, that ice didn't feel that cold, but this bag feels much, much, much colder than just frozen ice. The temperature here inside this bag is much, much colder than just plain ice can afford, and we need that deep cold to be able to freeze this. So listen, I don't know how this has turned out. We'll find out soon, but I'm just going to start to open up our bag. So I'm opening up bag number 3, and I'm going to pull out the contents here. There we go. You can see all the little frost pieces that fell out. And now I've got bag number 2. So I've got bag number 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and put a bowl here and pour everything into it. Now look, that water that's here is salt water. Perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. Perfectly fine. Now I'm just going to pour out the liquid part of that. And I think what I'll do is, just to make sure that this is a little bit neater, so I don't make a big, big mess here over my kitchen table, I'm just going to stop pouring, and I'm going to put this salty water in the sink. Hang on. There we go. Good. So I have my container, and I have my bag, and I'm going to pour everything now. Actually, you know, it would be just easier if I pull bag number 1 out. So bag number 1 has the cream, it has everything here. It's not super frozen. Now, if I wanted this to freeze a little bit more, I could just take this whole bag and put it in my regular freezer. So to open this thing up now, I'm going to have to peel away some of that tape. There we go. There's one piece. The other piece of tape evidently stayed in bag number 2, and now I'm going to open it up. Now, it should be, look at that. It's not liquid inside, it's a semi-solid. What we have now is we have actual ice cream in this bag. So I don't want to let any of the salt surrounding this bag to get inside, but look, what I have now are ice crystals. That's ice cream. Now, you can't taste this at home, but I'm going to taste it right now. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's taste this ice cream. Very creamy. Lots of vanilla. I have to tell you something. It's delicious. I'm going to put this bag now in the freezer, and I can enjoy it through the whole holiday. So listen, I hope you get a chance to try this at home. Let me know how you do. Send me photographs, everybody. Have a wonderful holiday. Be safe, be safe, be safe. Give my love to your families. Have fun and be safe. And I will answer any emails that you send me over the holidays. I will respond to any photos. If you can't do that, that's perfectly fine. Just relax, have fun, be good, and we'll see you in the year 2021. Be good, everybody. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.